Please be seated. You will have to excuse some of the last minute actions and steps that we have taken to be sure that kick off today's program. And this is because it is the very first edition of the Neiti House Dialogue. And it is proposed to be a quarterly event under the auspices of Neiti, a multi-stakeholder driven program during which key figures in the extractive industries will be invited to the Neiti House, along, of course, with the very personalities who are here present, to rub minds, exchange views, and more importantly, to hear and learn from the special guest. And kickstarting the program of the Neiti House Dialogue is a very special guest. He is the Chief Executive of the Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, Engineer Benga Komolafe. Please let's welcome him with a round of applause. And the chief host for the dialogue is the Executive Secretary of Neiti, Dr. Oji Ogbonaya Oji. Please let's welcome him also. We'll have time to fill in more details, but before we get into the program proper, let me at this stage invite the Executive Secretary to, as always happens in the industry, give a few brief remarks on safety and security in this environment. The Executive Secretary.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, CCE. EDs from AUPRC, our special guests, our colleagues, partners, civil society, the media, ladies and gentlemen. Well, in the industry, there are usual security briefings, HSC briefings before we start. We are yet to really fully embed this into our culture because we're still working. But just to say that we're on the ground floor here, and there are two entrances, one this side and the other one the other side, where you came in from. But there's another one, 2 toilets here. Our lift is still a work in progress, has been installed, but it's not working yet. We have test run it twice, but we still want to make it HSC compliant before we continue. My office is on the 4th floor where some of you came. It's a 3-story building, but for now, we unfortunately subject all our staff to compulsory morning exercise where you have to climb up. So our HSC briefing and the comprehensiveness will be part of the completeness of the phase of this house renovation. But for now, this place is very safe. We have our security, our partners here are container sellers, but they have accepted us as stakeholders. We came and we told them we are not chasing you, don't chase us. And we have so far existed in good relationship. They are ordinary Nigerians who are struggling to make ends meet. They constitute no harm to our work, and we have also been supporting them. We have been living peacefully. So those are just minor tips. But if you have any questions whatsoever, please you can ask any of our staff. But you feel really safe here, and we do assure you of quality interaction. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oji Ogbonaya Oji, for the safety and security brief that we have received. I'd like you, if you have a copy of the program, just to walk through what we'll be doing this morning. The intention is for us to try and wrap this up in about, I was going to say 1 hour, but I know our discipline usually with respect to time. So let's try and do 75 minutes. And if we stretch it any further than that, it probably will be an hour and a half. but the intention is for us to be out of, more than 75 minutes. Presently, I'll be inviting the Executive Secretary again, this time to give his welcome remarks. Thereafter, we will have the special guest deliver his presentation and, of course, comments. And after that, we'll have a Q&A with the special guest. Plus, of course, other comments that will come from the invited guests. Thereafter, we'll have the closing comments, which will be delivered by the Director of Communications and Stakeholder Management Department of Neiti. So one more time, I'll shortly be inviting the Executive Secretary, and thereafter, there will be the presentation by the special guest, who is the Chief Executive of the Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, Engineer Gbenga Komolafe. Our special guest today is a very well-known figure in the oil and gas industry, and Neiti couldn't have made a better choice in tapping him to be the first to appear at the Neiti House Dialogue. He's not just a fellow of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, he's also a lawyer, and as I said, is a very well-regarded expert in the oil and gas sector. Before his appointment, he had worked in the NNPC, where he was Group General Manager, and he had oversight, for instance, over the crude oil sales marketing department. He had also been in PPPRA, as he used to be known then, as well, of course, as the Petroleum Equalization Fund. PEF is reputed to have brought in technological innovations in tracking the distribution of petroleum products in different parts of the country, so that claims by distributors can be properly assessed and then payments made therefore. He's also a lawyer. He studied law at the University of Benin. I was called to the Nigerian bar in 2008. So, very distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, that's our special guest. But amongst us, I should also warn, his name is Engineer Gbenga Komolafe. Now, he has a very well-known brother as well, who is in our industry. That is the media industry. I'm sure you read This Day. Yeah, he's now the ombudsman. At some point, he was deputy managing director of This Day, Kayode Komolafe. Kayode Komolafe, we call him KK. He used to be at The Guardian as well, and he had this leftist tendency. And here his brother is, of course, if you're in the business, you will have to have a rightist tendency. So, amongst us this morning, very distinguished personalities, and you permit me to quickly recognize them. Mr. Gweke Ajafia is the chair of Neiti Companies Forum and executive director, oil producers trade section. Mr. Gweke Ajafia, those who are at the back cannot see your face, so I just thank you. Now, from the Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, we have a number of executive commissioners. Let me welcome Captain John Tolaga. Captain John Tolaga is Executive Commissioner in charge of Health, Safety, Environment, and Communities. Captain John, anything to add to what he has said in terms of safety procedures? Thank you. So we have to go. Now, we also have the Executive Commissioner from the Upstream Regulatory Commission. He's in charge of exploration and acreage management, Mr. Bashari Indabawa. Mr. Bashari Indabawa. And the Executive Commissioner in charge of Economic Regulations and Strategic Planning, Mr. Babajide Fashino. There are other directors from the commission who are here. Ikat J is Director of Finance, Ewuga BA, Director of Exploration, and Ayawu JC, Director in charge of Development. Now, the civil society organizations are also very well represented at this place. Faith Wandishi is a regular and unmistakable face. That's right. Faith Iwandishi. He's always hiding, but I'm going to pull him out this time. Dr. Mike Uzoigwe. Dr. Mike Uzoigwe. And one of the champions when we were having the PIB, and Neiti was involved in organizing a series of workshops and training programs for lawmakers. Mike Uzoigwe was always, of course, along with the ES, Dr. Ojo Bunaya Oji, and the rest of the team at Neiti. Paul Ogu is also here from civil society. Paul Ogu. My colleagues from the Fourth Estate, the media, they're very well represented in this place. I'm not sure we're going to have enough time to recognize you individually, but gentlemen of the press, you are highly welcome to this dialogue. Now, from Neiti, there are a number of directors who are also present. Usman Abdulrahman is Director, HR and Admin. Dr. Ademola Afolabi is Director of Finance and Accounts. Yeah, that applause is much louder than the first one because one who speaks. And then, of course, we have our own Biageli, who is in charge of communications and stakeholders management. The director of finance was clapping louder than every other person else. But I can assure you that your applause, the applause for you was much louder than Obiageli's applause. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the outlook we have for today. We, as I said, we'll be having the welcome remarks by the executive secretary. Thereafter, we'll take the presentation by our special guests, Q&A and comments. When we do get to the Q&A session, I will outline further what the rules would be. But more essentially, for us to be reminded that it should be focused on the presentation and mandate of our special guest. So the focus and mandate is on oil and gas, not the broad spectrum of extractives. So we'll be talking today, for instance, about solid minerals and all of that. And more essentially also is dealing with the upstream. You know, following the enactment of the PIA, we now have three clearly defined sectors: upstream, midstream, and then downstream. Ladies and gentlemen, my pleasure at this time to respectfully invite the Executive Secretary of Neiti, Dr. Oji Obunaya Oji, to deliver his welcome remarks.
CCE, the ED's chairman, Companies Forum, colleagues from the civil society and the media, my colleagues in management, ladies and gentlemen, I'm immensely pleased to welcome our good friend and brother and a key partner in the EITI process to Neiti House for the very first time, and the honor and privilege he has offered us to be the first guest to open the Neiti House Dialogue, which I know is going to become a culture of our operation from generations to come. Your presence here today, sir, is historic. The Neiti House Dialogue is a quarterly briefing of Neiti key stakeholders from the companies, from government, from civil society that will be taking place here in Neiti House, not any other venue, from time to come and every quarter. The Neiti House Dialogue is designed to host notable policymakers in Nigeria's extractive sector and other related sectors who will come to join us to address issues of interest, topical in the industry, and as it affects their job. The Neiti House Dialogue will also require inviting policymakers to provide update on status report on implementation of Neiti reports, findings, and recommendations as it concerns the sector they preside. This is with a view to deepen not just government oversight and reforms in the extractive sector, but to make it inclusive and elicit ownership in terms of policy making through dissemination. Selected sections of company representatives, media, civil society organizations will be taking the podium once after the other. The invited guests will also get the privilege to be asked policy questions and make informed response. At this edition of the Neiti House Dialogue, the very first edition, the Commission Chief Executive of the Nigeria Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, NUPRC, Engineer Gbenga Komolafe, Fellow of the Nigerian Society of It, a very notable figure, expert in the oil, gas, and mining sector, spanning over 3 decades, will be taking the stage today. Engineer Komolafe will be speaking on issues around licensing and bid rounds in Nigeria's oil and gas sector. He will also address online register of licenses for upstream assets, contract and licensing disclosure in the upstream segment of Nigeria's extractive industry, gas commercialization in Nigeria, host community development trust fund, hydrocarbon measurement issues in the oil and gas sector, crude oil losses due to theft, sabotage, deferred production, revenue remittances, and other issues. We would also like to hear from him on the status of beneficial ownership, information disclosure in the oil and gas sector, energy transition plans and policies for the sector as it affects NUPRC, and the progress so far made in the implementation of PIA as it affects the Commission. I'm also here available to answer any questions, to support him to answer any questions as it may be thrown in terms of relationship between Neiti's job and the job of NUPRC. The Neiti House Dialogue is coming at the heels of the press briefing, which we just had last week, to keep stakeholders updated on where we are in the implementation of EITI in Nigeria. At that press briefing, I did announce and expressed our profound appreciation to Mr. President for the timely reconstitution of the Neiti National Stakeholders Working Group. And at that press conference, I did highlight government's highest show of commitment to make the sector in May and June. But today, Engineer Komolafe is our guest, but he will do the talking while I will do the listening. The rest of us will do the listening and take notes. And from our notes, we'll be able to answer and ask questions. Once again, I would like to thank you and thank the Power Holding Company of Nigeria for interrupting my discussions. Well, I think you need to encourage them with an applause. We have come to a level where if people are talking and they take like nobody, we think it's normal. It's not normal. Because we are paying bills, which are increasing every day, and they are challenged to give us service. So we would like to depend on public power, our private power supply for now until this event is over. So the maintenance department should please leave a public power supply for now. Let's remain on our own until we finish the program. On that note, I would like to thank us for coming, and I ask my colleagues in the media, the civil society, stakeholders from the companies to please feel free to ask questions that may arise from any of these issues, especially from the presentation that our special guests will be making to us very shortly. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oji Ogbonaya Oji. Please, once again, let's appreciate him. There was one of the messages in his welcome address, also the fact that the Neiti House Dialogue will take place here at Neiti House and nowhere else. I'm sure we all heard that. We all heard it? All right. So there's a reason why I'm raising this. Because about a year ago, the executive secretary was one of the resource persons at a workshop organized by the Corporate Affairs Commission. That workshop was a prelude to the unveiling of the Beneficial Ownership Register. The workshop took place at Fraser Suite in the central area. I had the privilege of being the facilitator on that occasion. And at some point while the workshop was on, the executive secretary walked into the venue. His steps and strides were majestic. And I did remark when I had the opportunity of coming back to the microphone that the executive secretary was walking now like an institutional landlord in Abuja. Do you know what that means? Institutional landlord. Before then, Neiti didn't have a house of his own. So Neiti had just moved into this building, and it was a big deal for Neiti, and it still is a big deal because until now, Neiti, of course, will go to rented accommodation or rented spaces at hotels or other venues to hold its functions. For example, a dialogue of this nature would have been held outside of these premises. But here we are, through the efforts of Neiti itself, the management, the staff, the directors, and more importantly, the stakeholders working group, Neiti now has its own structure that we all should applaud it for. Let's give Neiti a round of applause. The only thing that is not very clear, Executive Secretary, is, you know, when you were speaking, the light went off. Are you in band A or in band B? for tariff purposes, because sometimes, you know, even those in band A are not quite sure whether they're in band E or in band F. In my location, for instance, we've not had light. And they say you are in band X, and so on and so forth. So, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, now my privilege and honor to invite our special guest, the Commission Chief Executive, Engineer Benga Komolafe, a well-known face in the oil and gas industry, fellow of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, a member of the Nigerian Bar Association, and former Group General Manager in charge of crude oil sales and marketing, as well as being in charge of PEF, Petroleum Equalization Fund, and PPRA. Ladies and gentlemen, please let's welcome our special guest and the pioneer chief executive of the Upstream Regulatory Commission, who is also having the privilege of delivering the maiden House Dialogue address here at the Neiti House. Executive Secretary, a pleasure to lead.
The Executive Secretary, Neiti, and our brother, Executive Commissioners, NUPRC here present, top management members of Neiti here present, our critical stakeholders, that is members of the civil society, ladies and gentlemen of the press. please permit me if I've left anyone out in this introduction, but I guess the protocol has been well laid by the Executive Secretary. Before going into my presentation proper, let me share this with us. The years when I received the invitation to come here, like the MC said, the invitation was actually addressed to Mr. Kayode Komolafe. And it's time of my brought the invitation that said, this is a wrong invitation that I'm sure is not meant for NUPRC. But I said, never mind, because I understand the intention, the good intention of the ES. I said, we will honor the invitation. That is why, yes, we're here. Mr. Kayode Komolafe is the ombudsman of this day and Arise. Well, here is Engineer Benga Komolafe. So your intention is, yes. And eminent stakeholders, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me say that I feel highly honored and excited to be here this afternoon to present this maiden presentation, that is to the Neiti dialogue. Of course, I feel exceptionally honored, as you could see, that being the first special guest in this forum. I think it's a matter of honor and pleasure for us as the regulator of the Nigeria upstream oil and gas space. So, Executive Secretary, we thank you very much for this honor bestowed on us. And again, I'm excited because from the inception, right from the word go, for us as a regulator, we believe in the Neiti principle, in the Neiti principle of transparency and accountability. So right from the word go, we've been collaborating with Neiti in our processes. As a regulator, we believe that the philosophy, the belief of Neiti aligns with our regulatory philosophy. So it's not difficult for us to align, to collaborate with Neiti in your activities. And I want to, as I stand on this podium, I want to assure Neiti, assure you, the Executive Secretary, that you see more collaboration, positive collaboration from us as a regulator. And you know what? Transparency, we believe, is very, very key to achieving the intent of the Petroleum Industry Act. As a regulator, we believe that regulating fairly, transparently, ensuring certainty, predictable regulatory environment are all key parameters to ensure investors' confidence and attracting the needed investment into the Nigeria oil and gas space. So for us, we are very, very much committed to the Neiti transparency and accountability principle. And that is why we are excited to be here today. Like I said, I feel excited and honored to be here. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to address this esteemed audience today at the first edition of the Neiti House Dialogue. To begin with, let me thank our host and our brother, Dr. Ogunaya Orji, the Executive Secretary of Neiti, for initiating and organizing this quarterly policy briefing. I have no doubt that this dialogue will provide an excellent platform for exchange of ideas, to interrogate institutional processes, and offer a feedback mechanism as it affects adherence to transparency and accountability in extractive industries. Let me also express my profound gratitude to His Excellency, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, for his great leadership and dedication towards good governance, transparency, and accountability, thereby promoting investors' confidence and fostering economic growth. Ladies and gentlemen, promoting transparency, good governance, and accountability in the administration of the petroleum resources of Nigeria is a key objective of the Petroleum Industry Act 2021 as provided in sections 2C, 66F, and 67. Indeed, transparency, accountability, certainty, and a predictable regulatory environment are crucial elements for attracting investments, driving economic growth, and ensuring sustainable development. By prioritizing these essential elements, Nigeria can create a conducive environment for oil and gas businesses to thrive. As industry regulator, we are focused on pivoting the upstream oil and gas operations effectively for optimization of our national hydrocarbon resources for enhanced revenue generation, optimum return on investment. In line with our mandate, the Commission has proactively put in place a 10-year strategic plan designed to attract investment, grow reserves, and increase production. We have also developed 25 viable regulations as displayed on the board to enhance appetite and support energy security. The 25 regulations are, like I said, as displayed on the board. And the Commission consulted widely with all key stakeholders pursuant to Section 216 of the PIA to ensure collaboration and transparency in our regulatory processes. In essence, what I was saying is that the regulations that the Commission put in place, developed, were done in consultation with the critical stakeholders. And I'm happy today you have a member of our critical stakeholder, that is the OPTS, here present, a representative of the International Oil Company, that is the OPTS. So I don't know if you have the representative of IPPG here as a critical member, stakeholder in the industry. So in our regulation development processes follows a transparent process, typical of legislative procedure, and that is in line with the provisions of the Petroleum Industry Act. So these are essential elements in transparency. So we don't just sit down as a regulator and churn out regulations. So we follow rigidly the provisions of the law in making the regulations. So one is to ensure transparency, and the other is to ease implementation of the regulations that are put in place. And once we make these regulations, we ensure that they are displayed on our website so that the regulations are readily available, to the public and of course, the stakeholders for ease of utilization and implementation. So that itself again shows how, transparent, that the Commission has been in its regulatory approach. I think I equally need to add that if you look at the regulations we have made, we display here, some of the regulations are equally tailored towards deepening transparency in the oil and gas space. Quite a number of them are, designed to achieve the needed transparency. For instance, I'll pick some of the regulations there are, a novel pioneer effort that, like the upstream measurement regulation, is a pioneer effort to ensure that we are able to account for our production optimally. Also, I think all this will come during the question and answer session. We equally have the advanced cargo declaration regulation there. It's another regulation that is targeted towards ensuring that we curb the menace of crude oil theft, like the ES has said that I will be speaking to some of these possibly during the question and answer session. In furtherance of the strategic plan, the Commission is committed to implementing the initiatives encapsulated in our Regulatory Action Plan 2024. The Regulatory Action Plan is centered around ensuring regulatory certainty and predictability, vacating entry barriers, promoting global competitiveness, deepening transparency and accountability, value creation and monitoring, host community and environmental sustainability, as well as acceleration of field development. As we progress through this presentation, we wish to showcase the various activities by the Commission that will attract investment, create employment, grow reserves, increase national oil production, and generate revenue. These activities are carried out with utmost transparency and accountability. First is the licensing round. The licensing round that we're putting in place is designed to enhance quality data sets and is going to be conducted on a fair, transparent, and competitive bidding process, and in a non-discriminatory manner as stipulated in Section 73 and 74 of the PIA. Also, we have the gas commercialization plan that will drive the Decade of Gas program of the federal government through accelerated gas development, as well as gas flare elimination and commercialization plan. Also, we have the Host Community Development Trust Fund that we are administering through a transparent digital platform to promote accountability and transparency in the management of this laudable program. The revenue generation and remittances approach of the Commission is tailored towards ensuring accuracy and accountability in determination and remittances of various sources of federation revenue. It is gratifying that in the last 3 years, that is, you could see the growth of revenue generation profile by the Commission. The Commission has successfully been meeting and in fact surpassing the revenue targets set for the Commission. And that equally speaks to the transparent approach in revenue reporting by the Commission. The Commission has been very deliberate in following up with relevant stakeholders in performing its regulatory functions as required. Ladies and gentlemen, we will continue to keep registers of licenses and leases, permits, and other authorizations issued by the Commission, the records of beneficial ownership, award and renewal assignment, amendment, suspension, and revocation of licenses and leases. In conclusion, permit me to conclude by reassuring all our stakeholders, members of the civil society, of our commitment to sustaining our ongoing efforts in ensuring optimal development of Nigeria's petroleum resources. We will continue to collaborate with Neiti and all the other industry stakeholders to ensure accountability and transparency for enhanced energy security in Nigeria. Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the speech of the Commission Chief Executive. Yeah, thank you very much for listening. But before I return to my seat, I know that there'll be enough time for us to to discuss the presentation. So let me just use the opportunity equally to touch on a number of issues that will be of interest to us. In fact, when the ES contacted me to come for this presentation, I said, yes, I eagerly accepted to honor the invitation, because I said this would be a good opportunity for us to, as we are planning to commence the 2024 licensing round, that it will be a good opportunity to launch this critical program before these eminent stakeholders that are seated here today. It will be a good opportunity to discuss with you the processes that will drive the process. Believing that if our processes are transparent, you agree with us that our result will equally be what? Will be transparent. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure and honor to announce to you that the 2024 licensing round, as prescribed in the Petroleum Industry Act, will commence from the end of this month, and we'll be going to offshore to market, because part of our job as a regulator, the job of a regulator is a composite job. Our job equally entails marketing the nation, that is the nation abundant hydrocarbon resources to prospective investors. So we'll be going to do that, and the process has commenced, and we've set very clear criteria that will guide the implementation of the process from beginning to the end in a transparent manner. So I believe that it is good that we share that process with you. So maybe in the course of interaction, you may wish to drill down in that respect. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Engineer Benga Komolafe, the Commission Chief Executive of the Upstream Regulatory Commission. Once again, please, let's give him a round of applause. As you can see on the backdrop, we have some online participants at this House Dialogue. And in the course of the interaction, they could, of course, join us if they have questions and if they also have comments to make. I indicated earlier that we will return to the audience after the presentation by our special guest, and that's where we are right now. But you will permit me to ask our special guest the very first question, and thereafter we'll return to the audience. But I would like us to kindly signify if you have a question to ask or a comment to make, signify by raising your hand, and then we'll take 3-4 persons in the first instance, and then we'll go again. So if you have any question or comment, kindly signify by raising your hand. Faith one issue number 1, gentleman over there, number 2. All right, gentleman in bowler hat, number 3. None from this side. Okay, there's a lady right at the back there. That would be number 4. So Faith 1, gentleman 2, 3, and then 4. We'll come to you. My question, Engineer Komolafe, is of a more general nature. Now, in the build-up to what is now known as the Petroleum Industry Act, it was clearly stated, it was argued, it was canvassed that having the 3 critical legs of the oil and gas industry that we have today, upstream, midstream, and downstream, would help in the fortunes of the oil and gas sector. And for the upstream, of course, we now have also the commission where you are. Then we also have the authority, which deals with the other legs. In the 3+ years since we have had the PIA, what has been your experience in implementing this very critical piece of legislation in our oil and gas industry?
Yeah, thank you very much. The MC, your question borders on the structure of the industry as provided by the Petroleum Industry Act and the implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act since passage into law in August 2021, and our experience as pioneers driving the implementation. Yeah, let me start from the point that, of course, it has really been a very, very challenging experience. Challenging in for the fact that we have a piece of legislation that took the nation over 1.5 decades to put together. And don't forget that this piece of legislation, the law, is a law that repealed the other existing laws, and now we're expected to implement that. However, in the last 3 years, I'm happy and proud to share with our esteemed stakeholders here that for us as the regulator of the upstream, that on assumption of duty, we hit the ground running, and we have been able to lay, what I'll call critical foundation upon which the regulation that is of the industry could be driven. We have been able to pilot the affairs of the industry in a very, very, clear manner with our regulatory focus. We've been able to define our regulatory focus areas in a manner that we can say today there is clarity, there is certainty, and that we have gradually been able to restore investors' confidence, given that every discerning investor would want to invest in an atmosphere of clarity, atmosphere of certainty, and that the Nigeria upstream environment as of today could now be said is a predictable, regulatory environment that investors, could, want to invest. So regardless of the challenges at the start, we have been able to identify these challenges, and we are addressing the challenges one by one. Of course, pre-PIA, I can rightly tell you that the upstream environment was a very, very chaotic environment, But today, investors now know there is sanity and there is predictability, and the rules of engagement are now clear on the basis of the regulations that on record time, as displayed during my presentation, that we have been able to put in place, and regulations that are targeted towards addressing specific areas, issues in the industry. Regulations that are made, in consultation with the key stakeholders as provided by law. So this have made it very easy for the stakeholders to comply, because part of our focus is to ensure that stakeholders, willfully comply with the law, as against the regulatory philosophy of being, regulating like a police. So in a manner where a business enabler, like, we continue to assure the investors that we do not regulate with police mentality. We encourage the investors, we see them as investors, so we try to make things, make it easy for them to come into compliance, willful compliance, as against being compelled to comply. So for the fact that the regulations that were put in place were done in collaboration with that is in consultation with these investors, so compliance becomes easy, and we'll make the regulation available. Upload these regulations as soon as they were made, in line with best practices. So by and large, it has been very exciting. Since we started as a pioneer, and we've been facing the challenges, and with excitement, and we believe there's still more to be done, and we'll continue to put in our best. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, special guest. Now, so let's return to audience. We already tapped 4 persons, the first set of questions. Kindly state your name and your affiliation, and then make your comment or pop your question. But let us be as brief as possible.
Thank you so much. The CCE, the Executive Secretary, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Faith Mwadishi. I'm the Executive Director for the Center for Transparency Advocacy, as well as the convener Women in Extractives. Just a little background. I used to be on the Neiti board representing civil society, and on the EITA International board representing Anglophone Africa civil society. I want to thank you, sir, for making yourself available for us, because this is a rare opportunity to have this kind of dialogue, and congratulate Neiti for thinking about this. This is a worthy cause, and I suggest that please let's continue to have it. And also congratulate you, sir. In the last 3 years or so, you have made 27 regulations, but I'm quite interested in about 3 of them. One of them being the latest one, which is the product curtailment and domestic crude supply, considering shortage in supplies. And I know that in that regulation, you talked about, having access to the modular refineries and Dangote refinery. So considering that we have about 3 modular refineries that can produce 10,000 barrels per day, that means already giving them 30,000 barrels per day and giving Dangote, which would greatly help us to meet domestic need for refined products. But my concern is, what is in the incentive for entities that are used to exporting, what is the incentive for them to first of all approach these domestic crude refiners so that we can meet that. The second aspect also is on gas commercialization. I would just like to hear a little bit more what has been done, because prior to PIA, I know we worked a lot with the Ministry of Petroleum on the gas commercialization project and all of that. Then host community. We've been engaging host communities, and congratulations for the regulation and also the portal that you created. Why I'm saying congratulations is because we're still waiting for midstream and downstream to come up with their own regulation on what should happen with that. I think NUPRC deserves a round of applause for that. So, but the concern is that communities are concerned that in the constitution of the host community trust, there's little or no consultation with them, and it becomes a concern if we are looking at the issue of ownership and sustainability of that project. So I'm also concerned that even though you said in the putting up these regulations, you had wide consultation with stakeholders, I'm yet to see that robust consultation with civil society. Perhaps you could think about creating a framework that would have a sustainable kind of consultation with civil society. If you recall, sir, in the first month of your being in office, a few of us visited you, and we also put this on agenda. And 3 years down the line, we're yet to see this happen. Finally, sir, the new EITI standard talks about gender reporting and women's participation. I see that in your entourage here, there's not a single woman. As a regulator, what the EITI is asking for, not just for the regulator, but industry-wide participation of women and gender, what would you be looking at? Perhaps you have a policy we are not aware of, so that we can help to see that Nigeria is on track in EIT implementation of gender participation within the extractive value chain. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
What is she? You had the opportunity of asking a question. You asked 4, if not 5. So we will ask our special guest to respond to those issues so they don't get lost when other questions are also asked. But we do hope that the other questioners would restrict themselves to do more than a double barrel.
Okay, thank you very much. Our sister from the civil society, I think the MCs said your question is double barrel, but in actual fact, I think it's more than double barrel.
No, it's not. You asked for others. You don't go more than.
No, I said you said our question is double barrel, but this is more than double barrel. It's more than double barrel because I have 4 questions here. Okay, so your first question borders on the implementation of the domestic crude oil obligation as provided under Section 109 of the Petroleum Industry Act. That is the implementation of the domestic obligation. So let me first answer that robustly. Ladies and gentlemen, critical stakeholders, let me lay the background this way, that for us as Nigeria Upstream Regulatory Petroleum Commission, NUPRC, we are very much committed to ensuring that we step up our domestic refining capacity. Given our position as the largest producer of oil in Africa, yesterday I was in office with my team here. We're in office from about 11 a.m. till 7 p.m. And I think I was having a conversation with them. We were having this argument. Remember, not long ago, Nigeria was recorded as the second largest producer in Africa. So there's a technicality in this that I need to address. as a matter of fact, we are still the largest producer on the aggregate. Second largest producer, the technicality of the fact that is where you consider oil alone. But when you consider oil and condensate volume, we become the aggregate largest producer. So we still maintain our position. Well, in the milieu of that, and our critical position within OPEC and Community of Nations that produces crude oil, as a regulator, we believe that Nigeria must be self-sufficient in domestic refining capacity so that we can avert the kind of situation, I'll call it, that we still see, I think, in the contemporary times, that we call fuel kill and all that. So we believe that we can avert that as a nation when we step up our domestic refining capacity, given our natural endowment. So to that extent, we recognize the provisions in Section 109 of the Petroleum Industry Act. And as part of our priority, we have put in place a regulation, to drive the implementation, successful implementation of domestic crude oil obligation in place. And we've been committedly pushing the implementation of that so that we can achieve the intended and attainment of the Petroleum Industry Act in that behalf. Of course, if you've been following our activities, flag the implementation of the domestic crude oil obligation on, and that inaugural flag up. I'm not sure if the Neiti ES was not there, because I want to believe. We made mention of the fact that, unfortunately, as a nation, that our our upstream had been organized, unfortunately, in a manner that is set to be, designed, in a manner that the crude we produce are just exported, without much value addition. And for that, for a very long time, our midstream, and especially the midstream, was relegated. And that exactly is part of what the Petroleum Industry Act sought to address by ensuring that we have a developed midstream and a reversal of what I call the load and go approach. So with commitment and dedication for us in the Commission, we are pushing to ensure that the domestic refineries are provided with the needed feedstock. After all, what is a refinery? Not more than feedstock and financing. So good enough as a nation, today we have one of the biggest refineries, in the world now, in Nigeria, a 650,000 barrels per day refinery that is operational. And we have equally flagged off the implementation of the domestic crude oil process. We have been able to put in place what I call the rule of engagement to govern both the producer and the refiners in a manner that parties now know their obligation under, within that situation. And we expect to see seamless implementation of the provisions, downloadable provisions of the Petroleum Industry Act. And like I've often said that whenever you have any new initiative, you could have teething problems, but we continue to monitor the implementation as a regulator and be addressing the issues that as they emanate. But suffice to say that as a regulator, we are very, very much committed to having a turnaround that would our domestic refining capacity will be stepped up. Also, your second question borders on a host community, that is implementation of the host community development trust, and that is as equally provided under section 232, 235 of the Petroleum Industry Act. And again, I want to share with us our critical stakeholders, members of the civil society, that the commission, that is the commission under our watch, believes that implementation of the host community development trust is very, very critical to achieve, to achieving the needed peace in the operating environment. As a matter of fact, we believe that social inclusion is the best recipe for achieving the needed peace within the operating environment. And for that reason, we have committedly, as a matter of priority on assumption of office, made development of host community regulation as one of the regulations that I displayed on the board during my presentation as a matter of priority. And one interesting thing, again, we have done is that we equally believe, that it is very important to implement that provision in a very, very transparent manner. This is in another manner, a way that our belief aligns with the Neiti belief. So the implementation of that program from the outset, we intentionally designed the implementation end to end to be done in a digital manner. So as I speak, from the very beginning, the remittances under the host community development trust as provided in the PI, that is the 3% operating expenses of the operators, are expected to be reported on the digital platform with a view that members of the civil society, the Neiti, the National Assembly, who at any time digitally monitor the compliance, the remittances, and the utilization of that fund end to end, and learning from our past as a nation, from the experiences we've had. So we are committed, to ensure transparent implementation of the scheme in line with our philosophy and belief as a regulatory commission. The third question has to do with a consultation with the civil society. I will simply answer this, my sister, by saying that the commission will continually collaborate with the civil society. You can take that for granted. So we'll step up our engagement and collaboration with the civil society as we regard you as a very critical segment for us to succeed in our regulatory activities. And of course, without you, we hardly can do anything, because we need your support. I must emphasize that, because the job of a regulator is a very, very tough job. You understand? We sit in a quasi-judicial manner. We take decisions on daily basis. And in taking decision, no court pleases both parties. So you understand that when we take decisions, oftentimes our decision, do not go down well with either of the parties. And in that respect, we are vulnerable. And to that extent, we believe that we need the support of civil societies to explain our actions, to support us, to give us the needed courage and support so that we can deliver on our monumental regulatory objectives, which we feel will be in the interest of the nation and the federation revenue. And the last question has to do with implementation of gender balance and participation in the commission. My simple response again to that is that our sister, please be rest assured that we are completely we are completely gender sensitive in the commission. As a matter of fact, I think what had happened today, you would have seen our representation differently. So don't judge us by the representation we have here today. I just left a session. We had an early morning program in Transcorp because we started the due diligence process for the divestment process that we were handling with Shell. Currently, we have 4 divestment processes. So we started the conduct of the due diligence this morning. So I left that forum to come to this place. So some of our executive management members are there, and among them, in fact, the exercise is being driven by a lady. So we are gender sensitive. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Commission Chief Executive. So that's one. As I said, just pop a single question. Okay, then the gentleman behind.
Thank you very much. My name is Udo from Media Tracknet. CC, let me say I'm very happy to hear the news that the 2024 Field Award bid round has kicked off. And a very beautiful explanation that is going to be very different from the previous ones in terms of helping us, media and the civil society, to monitor the implementation end to end to be able to know exactly how much Nigeria is going to make. But can you clarify briefly, do you have any projections, sir? How much is Nigeria expected to bring in from that process at the end of this process? But the main question I want to ask has to do with the fact that if you look at some section of the Neiti recent report on oil and gas industry, there were some 17 PSC oil blocks that were flagged to be non-producing. And Neiti rightly recommended that these oil blocks should either be withdrawn and re-awarded to some very serious operators. Are you in the process of doing this withdrawal of these licenses and re-awarding them? And how soon is that going to be? Or is it captured among the oil blocks that have been put in the basket that is going to be re-awarded in the 2024 licensing round? Thank you. Ebola had.
It's not Ebola had. Good morning, CC. My name is Obas. I work for Vanguard newspaper. I want to, in addition to Bas's question, he was interested in the value. I'm interested in the number of oil blocks on offer in the 2024 bid round. How many oil blocks are we putting on board? Then on the online register of licenses for assets, can we status of the online register for the assets of upstream?
Okay, to brother from this day, I guess you want, no, this day first. Sorry, okay, media track, okay. If I got you correctly, you wanted to know, yes, sorry, you wanted to know the numbers involved. Okay, that is the projection from That is the assets, yes, being put on offer. Yes. Okay, let me answer the question this way. At the moment, you understand, when the assets that are being put on offer are mostly grain feed assets. So they are budget assets, and quantifying accurately, that is the amount to be generated as revenue, might be might be difficult to be made since they are grain assets. But you could just have an estimation. So I need to say that because the assets still, they are grain, we call them grain feed virgin assets. So, but then the totality of the estimation of the benefits in terms of the multiplier effects, everything could be put together. And of course, the nation in terms of royalty, in terms of taxes, could rake in, that is billions of dollars from, this exercise when it's eventually carried out. But to ascribe specific number as to the amount to be generated when, of course, you've not explored and you've not drilled the asset, honestly, you may not be able to have these accurate numbers. But all we know is that the totality of the benefits will come in terms of the statutory revenues that government will derive, the other derivative benefits in terms of employment generation, all this you put together as economic benefits from such assets. So it is preemptory, to say that you have or you are ascribing accurate numbers. No, may not be done professionally that way because you have not actually, you have not actually drilled to bring out the barrels and to be able to to fiscalize, that is the volume. So if we're giving you any number now professionally, that will not be correct, but we know that you have derivative benefits and that in terms of revenue, when all are put together, will run into billions of dollars. So I think you ask a rider on the back of that question, if you can have a recap in that respect. Yeah. Okay, yes, in terms of the PSC assets, now I remember. Yes, okay, let me just quickly pick the question this way, that currently the Commission is making a comprehensive review of all the awarded assets beyond those PSC assets you are talking about. So we are constantly carrying out a review of awarded assets look at the assets that are underperforming. So the assets that are underperforming and the assets that are not brought into maturation. These are idle assets that do not add value, to the nation. So what we do in that respect is that, that is invoking the provisions of the law to bring these assets into the basket and let them go through the competitive bid process as provided under Section 73 and 74 of the Petroleum Industry Act. So recall that the Petroleum Industry Act now has outlaw discretionary award of assets. So award of assets now go through fair, competitive, and transparent process. So that is the status for now. Yes. Now, that is the other. Yes. Sorry, your question again. Thank you very much. So as relates to the 2024 bid process, we are currently putting on offer 12 I mean, that is 12 blocks. But I need to recall that, remember that we commenced a bid process in 2022 where we put 7 deep offshore assets on offer. But as the termination, that is the conclusion date, was close to the last election, we had to put a hold on it in a bid not to mirror the process with the political process. So, but right now, we are completing that process and equally having 12 new bid round in the ongoing process. So in totality, we target to complete 17 blocks on offer. I mean, between now and early next year. Thank you.
Good afternoon, CCE and ES. My name is Georgina Ndukwe-Zainka from Arise News. You did attempt to answer this question, but I wasn't satisfied, so I want to bring it up again. In your presentation, you did mention that the Commission's objective is to account for all oil and gas production. So I want to know what Nigeria's current production stock is and why we are seeing shortages, which has resulted in long queues in Abuja, and it's really frustrating for every Nigerian at this time. I want to also know the state of the gas commercialization plan, which you said will drive the Decade of Gas initiative. What's the status at this point? And finally, what are the current regulations and requirements, tracked and license disclosure in the upstream oil sector? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The current daily production, that is hovers around 1.4, 1.5 million barrels per day. And of course, I acknowledge that there's still a gap between that and our OPEC quota. But happy enough, the Commission has put in place processes to ensure that we close the gap between our OPEC quota and the current national daily production. Also, your second question has to do with, I guess, yes, that's the gas commercialization, which I equally touched on in the course of my presentation. That's the Nigerian gas flare commercialization program. Currently, where we are, we have moved from where we started with and to share with you that we have successfully awarded 49 flare sites in a competitive and transparent process that has already been our hallmark. And the awardees are different stages of commencement of the development of the program. At our inaugural speech, I made mention of the fact that we are not just going to do the award, which ordinarily, as a regulator, could have been that, okay, we have discharged our responsibility, but I assure the nation that we will handhold these investors to ensure that the national objective for the program is achieved. Don't forget that the Nigerian gas flare commercialization program is a climate action project. In fact, it's a major climate action project by which Nigeria could showcase its commitment to environmental decarbonization. So we hold the program so there in that respect that we have established what we call the College of Awardees, through which we hold a quarterly forum to evaluate, to monitor the stage of development, implementation of the program because of the commitment that we have to ensuring that the program is successfully implemented. So I think just about last week, we had the last edition of the program in Transcorp, and the program was well attended by the investors, the producers, and by some embassies, commercial departments of foreign embassies, and other investors were there apart from financiers. So the excitement that we have recorded in the implementation of the program is quite very much encouraging, and I'd like to share that with us. So that is where we are. I mean, the implementation of the project, we are very much excited that the implementation will be successful, and the national aspiration in that respect will be achieved. Thank you very much.
So, big round of questions. So, there's the lady, okay, the back, okay, tell about at the back, that's 1, 2, and then 3. Yes, okay. So take 4. 1, 2, 3, and 5.
Okay, my name is Onu Okore, and I report for Nigerian Pilot. My question is bordered on security and the ability to attract investors in the sector now. What is the impact of the current security in Nigeria in your effort to attract foreign investors in this sector? Then secondly, this belief that Nigeria have found oil field in up north. I want to know something like this Chad region or Borno and other areas. Are they part of the areas you have blocks for sale? Thank you.
Good morning, all. Thanks, Neiti, for this panel. So my question is on, I mean, as a regulator, you mentioned something about a quasi-judicial function of a regulator, and you probably said something that you're not policing. But considering what we are having with your theft, and I commend your agency for the 2 major regulations you people have put up, that of measurement and advanced information about the cargo coming in. I think people will consider that, considering that oil theft is actually a major pain in the country, it's affecting our forex, it's affecting our economy. Without that, so what extra thing are you people doing to make sure you curb the issue of oil theft in the industry?
All right. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
To take that, but don't get lost in the question.
Yeah, this is. All right.
Okay. So thank you very much. Your question borders on what does the role of the NUPRC as a regulator, the efforts, the initiatives we have put in place to complement the effort of other general security forces and other stakeholders in curbing crude oil theft in Nigeria. Let me share with us that, you know, as a regulator, of course, like I said, we could only come in, you understand, in contributing in a non-kinetic manner, given that the regulator do not have the abrasive power to deal with, which is the issue of crude oil theft. So the general security forces are, I mean, in collaboration with NNPC, are actually playing the leading role in terms of the kinetic aspect dealing with the issue of crude oil theft. So a regulator does not really have that power. But at the same time, given our presence, I mean, in monitoring the crude oil terminal, so we share information. Intelligence is equally very key. We share information with the general security forces and of course, the private security elements that all work together to deal with this menace. And I quite agree with you that dealing with the menace of crude oil theft is very critical to ramping up our crude oil production and curbing leakages. But at the back of that is the fact that eradicating the menace requires both the kinetic and non-kinetic aspect. So we come in the non-kinetic aspect. So we recognize that, and that is why we made it a priority to pass to focus on the metering regulation. That is, don't forget, you can't manage what you cannot measure. So we recognize that there is the aspect of accurate metrics, of our, production is very key, to curbing leakages. So, and for the first time in the country when we came on board, we tried to focus on that accurate measurement of our production. So for the first time, we ensure that we identify the fact that there is need for us to have a regulation, that will deal with measurement of our crude, that is hydrocarbon resources. So that is why we put in place the measurement regulation. So with that regulation now, we address a number of what we have identified as gaps in ensuring accurate metering of our crude oil production, which is very key. So the same thing, we equally recognize that it is very important that we're able to track every molecule, that is of our crude production, to the final destination. Adopting, that is a technology, because we are now in a modern world, and we are leveraging technology to ensure that we are able to have line of sight on every barrel that is taken out of the country. So we equally put in place what we call the advanced cargo regulation. So combined implementation of those two regulations, we believe very much that will help us in closing the gaps in a non-kinetic manner in the crude oil theft. So as a matter of fact, we have the implementation of the metering regulation is being done in 2 stages. So we are commencing the implementation of the first stage, which has to do, first of all, with the proof, that is to do what we call integrity proof, technical proof of the existing metering facilities in the country. So we're enjoying the support of Mr. President to ensure that that is done. So we are commencing that initiative, and all these initiatives are all pioneer efforts and novel. They are, that is our first attempt to ensure that this all processes are achieved. So we believe that with your support as civil society, that by the time we implement these initiatives, that the community implementation of it will take us to our destination. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Facilitator Amokejiku Nodim with Punch. I always ask you questions too. I thank you to Neiti and thank you, CCE, for this opportunity. You talked about crude supply obligation. Modular refiners have been asking for some level of guarantee from the NUPRC in the respect that their financiers have stopped or are no more interested in bringing funds for them to start the construction of some modular refineries. They say they require crude term sheet, and they are like, they want the NUPRC to give them some level of guarantee, which will ensure that when these modular refineries are built, they will get feedstock. Now, they say their financiers want to see this, there's the word they call conditional term sheets. Yeah, they want to see this, but the NUPRC cannot give them that guarantee that when these facilities are constructed, they will get feedstock. So I know we are the NUPRC when you talked about the crude oil obligation and the rest of it, the guidelines which you put together. I was thinking this will cover this aspect of the conditional term sheet. So would you want to talk about it briefly? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Your question, Steve, further borders on the implementation of the domestic crude oil obligation. So first of all, let me make it clear that establishing refinery of whatever capacity, whether it's modular refinery or that is a bigger size refinery, is a commercial engagement. It's a commercial, transaction. So the commission can't come in to be giving guarantees in that respect. So I need to lay that background. However, the regulator, that is the commission, who only implement the provisions of the Petroleum Industry Act. Given that all the activities, all the regulatory activities and decisions of the commission is expected to be in compliance with the provisions of the law. So as relates to guaranteeing refiners' feedstock, that is enshrined under Section 109 of the Petroleum Industry Act. And what we have just done is, in furtherance of that provision, we have put in place a regulation that has to do with, domestic crude oil application, regulation. So what we, in the implementation of that provision, what we'll do is we receive the figures on the domestic consumption, that is, domestic refining capacity combined from our sister organization, that is Nigerian Mid and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. And once we receive that, our development and production department factors the numbers against the capacity of the various producers within the upstream and make it obligatory for them to meet those numbers. So thereby guaranteeing that volume of supply to existing licensed and operating refineries. So not refineries that have not come into existence. So we do not guarantee crude or financing for refineries that have not come into existence. So I think I want to stop at that level.
After Mike, we have quite a number of people online who have had their hands raised for quite some time. So also going to give them opportunity to have their names here. So after Mike, I'll bring them up.
Thank you very much, moderator. Thank you so much, CCE, and immense thanks to Neiti for also putting this platform together. We have congratulated them sufficiently today, and we hope that this will be a going concern. My name is Mike, Dr. Mike Uzoigwe. I used to be country manager for the EITI for Anglophone Africa. My first question, sorry, just a couple of them. My first question is a follow-up to the question asked about the non-performing PSCs. And it's not like, I'm not implying that you did not satisfactorily address that issue, but just that while you were speaking about the upcoming bid round, and in view of that upcoming bid round, my question is to see what we're trying to put in place to avoid this issue of non-performing PSCs. Actually, the 2021 Neiti report actually says that 23 oil blocks reported zero production in the year 2021. So I'm happy that it has reduced to about 17 now. And three of the licenses were awarded in 1993. And they expired last year, 2023. My question is, what sort of factors or what reasons do these license holders provide for holding licenses for this long and not being able to perform? And are there consequences in view of this, the new upcoming bid rounds? Are there consequences? Because if there are no consequences, some of us here might be interested in just coming to take up take up the space and keep them for however long we want and not perform. and you're also talking about, bridging the gap in production and things like that. 12 out of the 35 oil blocks produced 34% of the total production in 2021. So you can see that the opportunity is huge in terms of these other 17 that did not produce at all. My second question, which is more like calling your attention to what I think looks like a time bomb at this moment, is the issue of funding for the host communities development trust. We know that the PIA provides 3% OPEX of the companies from the preceding year for the funding of the trust funds. But there is no clear framework now for communities to be involved in a transparent manner in terms of determining what constitutes OPEX. So right now, what happens is that companies just, for the few ones who have started funding, companies just on their own provide or make those transfers into the funds that have been created. I think that we have a tendency to focus a lot on the letters of the law. But the spirit of that law, in my understanding, is to ensure that communities are also part of what goes in, and not just at the end of the day, you just tell them this is what the OPEX, 3% of OPEX is. So there needs to be a framework, and I think NUPRC should also be involved in that. Before I drop the microphone, very, very sorry, because Madam Faith here has been pinching me that she won't be able to get another opportunity, but within my own opportunity, and because she knows I'm very sympathetic to the case of gender as well, she said she was not referring to NUPRC alone in her question about gender participation in the sector. So as a regulator, what framework do you have to stimulate greater gender participation in the oil and gas industry? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you want to answer? Should be
Let me just answer them.
No, that's what I want to bring on the online. Just two of them online.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. The last speaker, that is Dr. Mike. Quickly, let me just respond that as relates to that is the status of the expired PLCs, the consequential actions taken by the Commission and the way forward. The Commission, through one of its departments, actually, that is the Exploration and Acreages Management Department and the Legal Department, they continually monitor and carry out evaluation of, that is leases to ensure that, expired assets are actually brought into the basket in line with the prescription of the law. Because whatever decisions we take has to be in alignment with the provisions of the PIA. And I've been underscoring this, that the decisions of a regulator is expected to act in line with the provisions of the law. So the regulator does not act unilaterally, discretionarily. His actions, a good regulator is conscious that his his decisions could be challenged in the court of law at any time. So we always consciously ensure that our regulatory decisions are in alignment with the provisions of the PIA as the ground norm. So the consequence, like you said, for investors, awardees not meeting the terms of the award is that such licenses are expected to be revoked under the law. And once we carry out evaluation and we've found out to that extent that the terms of the awards have been violated, we equally carry out the consequential provision, as provided in the law. So that is how we've been dealing with the issue of expired licenses. In fact, as I speak, we are carrying out similar exercises, even as borders on the PLC assets under the, don't forget that the NNPC is the concessionaire of PLC assets on behalf of the Federation of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So we, in consultation with the NNPC, we look at all the PLC assets under is, that is under the, within the purview of the NNPC, and the ones that are not performing, we put them within the basket and ensure that they are rebided. So the current bid round we are carrying out, if you check very well, you realize that it's equally in alignment with what I've just said. Yeah. Then I think you equally raised issue of the borders on the host community, that is compliance, remittances under the host community development trust. Yes, Doctor, the truth is that under our watch, the way we are implementing the host community development trust, it is not true that settlers, as they are designated under the law, because the operators, the licenses are designated settler by the virtue of the Petroleum Industry Act. If you listen in my presentation, I mentioned that right from the word go, we decided that the implementation of the host community development trust was going to be done in a very transparent manner, and nothing could be more transparent than what is digital, what you can see. Nothing could be more transparent than that. So what we did was to liaise with an original equipment manufacturer to ensure that we put in place a digital platform, because we had reason that there will be challenges in the implementation of the scheme in a manner that you'll be encountering issues of under remittance, delay remittance, and all that, appealing against penalty, discretionary determination of what is 3%, which is the fulcrum of your question. But we reason that all those will happen, and as a regulator, we do not want to be dealing with those issues. We feel that there are issues that could continue, could completely be obviated by, putting in place the process we have put in place. So the implementation of the scheme entirely, as far as the Commission is concerned, is done through what we call host comply. Host comply means comply with the provisions of the law in its entirety, and that has been encapsulated in a digital platform that does not allow the discretion in compliance. As a matter of fact, all that is, I'm happy the representative of the OPTS is here. All we expect from the licenses, the operators designated as settlers, is to upload their budget, their OPEX. So we do not expect the budget to be doctored, because we will see the original, copy of it. So as a matter of fact, we do not allow them to go ahead and determine what is the 3%. It is the digital platform. It's an automated digital platform that determines what the 3% is. So, and the platform has artificial intelligence. It's a very comprehensive platform that has artificial intelligence incorporated in it. So the digital platform determines the 3%, and the again, is a system that is completely devoid of any human interference, because we have said that we want 100% transparency in the administration. So there's nothing like under remittance, there's nothing like discretionary remittance. The only thing we have done is to make it easy for compliance. So the licenses, the settlers could stay in the comfort of their offices, upload their budget, and the system would tell them what the 3% is. And if they have made payment, the payment will be reported. The account they made the payment to will show. And as a matter of fact, on the other side, again, like you have said, mind you, the decisions for the disbursement is expected to be taken by the trustees, freely nominated by who? By the host communities, not the commission. So the commission is only facilitating, I mean, the parties to be transparent in the implementation of the scheme by putting in place the digital reporting mechanism. So once the money hits the account opened by the host communities could be viewed, and the purpose for which the money is utilized, the amount, who initiated the action, the status of the project, everything will be reported digitally, end to end, on that platform. So that is what we have. So it's a system that we believe is devoid of human interference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Please, sir, just to crave your indulgence.
Yes. I think that what we are pressed for time, let's quickly revert to.
And then when he's answering the questions, he can now also address that aspect. So Dr. Mina Obanga and Johnson Masheni, start with John, mute your microphone, and you have the opportunity to ask no more than 2 questions each. No more than 2. If you ask, we'll mute you back.
Oh, wow.
So unmute,
Oh, wow.
please. Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I think I'm the most excited person here, and I'm going to crave your indulgence ahead of my questioning to be sure that I'll be given the chance to ask more than 2. Oh, please. I want to thank ES particularly and Obiageli and her team for this invitation. It was so timely. And CC, you have kept us so excited. It's like a class 101, and it has been very, very interesting to hear some of our questions being answered. Thank you. I'm particularly excited. Now, my name is Mina Obanga, and I'm at the Center for Development Support Initiatives and the convener for the NGOs in Extractive Industry Group. And then we are particularly excited to be here today. And I'm going to have a couple of questions. And again, I'll keep pressing for reserving, but as fast as I can manage, I will read them all out. Read 1 or 2 out, to see. And first of all, one of the questions I wanted to ask is this issue. When you talk about the divestment process, please, I need your guide, because I'm looking as a professor of social aspect. I'm looking at the social aspect of the extractive industry. So that is a key part. And thank you so much for making us know that a lot of efforts are intentionally being made to mainstream that component very seriously. Now, how do you address issues around loss and damage in the ongoing divestment process? That's real one. And I cannot explain my question so much because of the timing. And number 2, I think I'm one of the most excited to hear that the online monitoring of the 3% operating process is finally coming into expenses, is finally coming into life. I'm a regular visitor of your Port Harcourt office, telling them every minute that this thing is not working, or it's not working, or where is it now? Where is the link? It's not, until they told us that don't worry, it's going to get into full operationalization, and that was very, very good. For me, I'm going to use it as a tool. You have made the work of many CSOs very easy and advocacy. But my own question on it is to know when exactly it will become full-blown for implementation and usage, And then the third thing is issues around the Nigerian gas flare commercialization project. As an ACRAN member, we're working on gas flare. I don't know how you hope to address, or how it has now been addressed, the harmonization of the discrepancies in the gas flare reporting. That is one. And the gas flare commercialization project is a
So, Mr. Johnson Masheni, please, can you come up with your questions? No more than 2.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity. Before my question, I need to establish something here, because there's something we discovered that is about to rock the civil space, and we need to bring it to this platform. I was actually waiting to see if the next presenter will present something close to it before I ask my question. Now, first and foremost, I am going to talk about the CSO rep election that ought to have been held yesterday, but some issue came up and some people had to take up some issues. So if I ask my question, whether...
Okay. Dr. Mina, are you still there?
You see why we love you now. Thank you for coming back. But I think you should also go back to the person. At least make sure you hear what, maybe I don't know, hear what it is. Thank you, CCE. Thank you, ES, because my mic, I don't know what happened to it. I had to turn my
Go
phone
straight to
upside
your
down. Okay, so
question,
fine.
Dr. Mina,
My
please.
point. Sorry, my dear. Now, I've asked the one about the divestment. I've talked about the gas flare, and I've seen that this gas flare commercialization project is driven a lot by the climate change Act. And my question is, right now in Nigeria, only Rivers State has domesticated the Climate Change Act. Please, sir, what effort are you doing in collaboration with the Climate Change Commission National to see how we support subnational domestication of that process? That is one. And then another thing is this gender mainstreaming. In a research we concluded last week, we still discovered that gender mainstreaming in the PIA process, I'm being specific, gender mainstreaming in the PIA process is still a big challenge. Is there any particular thing that we're going to do, or we look at the review process that's ongoing? And then in terms of the regulations that you have mentioned, I can't go into all of them. You mentioned the ones you even spoke about today. How do you ensure subnational engagement and awareness to ensure that the locals, the subnational level, people are fully aware? If at the national level, look at the number of people that know this and that concerning what you said. Imagine the subnational level where they don't have this much engagement. How robust are our engagement, at the subnational level for engagement and awareness on these regulations? Well, I mean, I can only be grateful for the time I've been given. In future, I know I will talk with you on the Alphan initiative. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much, the Dr. Mina. Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Mina, for your intervention. Let me begin to attempt to answer the questions as much as I can. And where I run dry of fuel, I guess my brother, the ES and the host is here to support me. Yes. So I think your first question has to do with the first question I had to do with the issue of the divestment. That is the divestment process. Doctor, let me start this way, that again, when the issue of the divestment came up, at the moment we have 4 of the divestment transactions in place, I mean, to be concluded by the commission. The role of the commission is to look at those divestment, the transactions, and recommend consent, yes, to the honorable minister, and that is the end process. But for us as a commission, we are very much committed to ensure that these divestment, transactions follow due process, that there's due diligence on all these transactions. As a commission, we are process driven and want to ensure that we put science behind or around the whole processes in a manner that our recommendation for the consent follows laid down processes. It is very critical for me to say, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our critical stakeholders, that what we are trying to do as a commission is done because it is in the interest of federation revenue that we actually ensure that the divestment follows the regulatory framework, the processes that we have put in place. For instance, we have put in place 6 key regulatory processes. And key among them is the fact that we want to ensure that the acquiring entities for this divestment, that are for the assets being divested, have the required technical and financial capacity to operate the assets optimally. In fact, at not below, possibly above the thresholds that they are being currently implemented, that is operated. Because if we do not ensure that, what will result is that the nation will be recording lower volumes, volumes from the assets, and that again will negatively further worsen our federation revenue. So for that reason, as a commission, we are very much committed to ensuring that the divestment process are diligently carried out. And it is to that extent that we have been able to put in place a robust framework consisting of 6 regulatory pillars, which we call the science behind the divestment process. So that is where we are. And aside that, we equally consider it very, very important that the decommissioning and abandonment liability obligations, that is legacy obligations, in respect of the assets for the period that these assets are being operated, are not left to the federal government of Nigeria to bear. So we equally made that a condition aside other critical conditions that we feel that the divesting entities needs to convince the commission about. Of course, you have the industrial relations aspect that is designed to ensure that, I mean, after the divestment, that we do not record industrial relations crisis, that is labor crisis, and also to ensure that there are no legal encumbrances like judgment debt and all that. Of course, we equally expect that the divesting entities equally repatriate the data in respect of the assets within the period that these assets have been operated, among other requirements. So for now, the commission is diligently going through the heaps of documents that have been front-loaded to the commission by the divesting entities for us as a commission to be able to come up with our recommendation for ministerial consent in respect of the assets. But critical to say, as like I presented, that is the cause of our presentation, that the commission is very much committed to the principle of free entry and free exit that will elicit investors' confidence to that the commission is not in any way stifling investment in the industry, but just ensuring that processes and procedures are put in place to guide divestment process. We recognize that divestment is a business decision, and we don't intend to stifle business, but to enable businesses in the Nigeria oil and gas space. So also, I think this the second question still tries to deepen conversation around the implementation of the host community, the host community or the gas commercialization plan. Yes, the gas commercialization program. Yes, for the gas commercialization, like I indeed explained, we have progressed from, all through the bid process, the award processes. We have issued award of the available size to that is entities that participated in the processes, and we are currently holding these entities to ensuring that the implementation of the scheme is successful and fulfills the national aspiration. Like I said, our goal as a nation in the gas flare commercialization is twofold. One is to ensure that we are registered as a member of community of nations that is committed to environmental decarbonization. And to this extent, we are working with other government bodies that equally share this commitment to environmental decarbonization in line with the world order. So that is a major commitment, a major objective that we intend to achieve with the gas flare out project. Environmental decarbonization, to show that we are, it's a climate action project to show that the commission on behalf of the nation is very committed to that. So we believe we are winning in this respect. And of course, that is tied to environmental pollution. The second objective is that this is a very, very, valuable resource of the nation that is being wasted. So that could be converted to revenue and other derivative benefits in terms of employment generation, in terms of equally stimulating midstream projects like production of methanol, LPG, LNG. All these are derivative benefits that will come from this project. So it's a project that will stimulate inflow of investment running into billions of dollars by the time we conclude the implementation. Thank you very much.
All right. Very well deserved appreciation for our special guest, the Commission Chief Executive of the Upstream Regulatory Commission. At the outset, I did say that our target was to do 1 hour, but I will push that to 75 minutes. As we speak, we have done 2 hours, 7 minutes. So if you were playing a soccer match, Man City against Real Madrid, excuse me, Man City against Real Madrid, you had full time, 90 minutes, 30 minutes extra time, and the 7 minutes for the penalty shootout. And you knew what the result was. Real Madrid, of course, defeated Man City, and they are now in the semifinals. But because this is the maiden edition of the Neiti House Dialogue, experience from this first outing will guide projections and planning for subsequent dialogues. So I want to give an opportunity. I have 2 questions myself, but I'm not going to ask those questions. I want to give the opportunity to the Executive Secretary, Dr. Ojo Bonaya Oji. Now, I'm sure most of us know him as a broadcaster. And the temptation is whenever he has a microphone, it goes on and on. So I'm going to time you, ES, very briefly, your intervention.
Well, thank you very much, Kesley, and thank you very much, CCE, for your patience, for your candid, in-depth answers to all the questions. And I would like to thank our very constructive audience, made up of industry experts, civil society, and the media, and all the EDs and management. My own is, he said, when a match extra time, if it becomes a tough match, it goes into extra time just to get a result. But the applause that was given suggests to me that stakeholders have endorsed this very important move. That on the commencement of bid round, you came to no other place than Neiti, the only agency with transparency is named, to unveil the basic step you like to take. I think this is an opportunity that stakeholders applaud. All our partners need is availability and offering of information. But there are just 4 comments I would like to make to close up answers questions. One, from the bid rounds, questions on the bid round, you mentioned when it will kick off, but I didn't hear when it will end. How long will this process end? That's one. You also did not make any comment on Nigeria's, how prepared Nigeria is towards net zero energy transition. What do we do with our existent, our current reserves? What exactly is the country's position on net zero? Then from your projection in the presentation you made, we would have, NUPRC would have raked in 4.3 trillion by 2023. That's what you raked in as revenue from your presentation. I would like to know the revenue streams from where these revenues were raised? And then what is your target for 2024? On that note, I would like to thank you for your intervention. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, the ES, and thank you for being playing a very good host to us this afternoon. For making us your first executive audience. Thank you. I mean, presenter. Thank you. Okay. In my presentation, I mentioned that the bid process is commencing. In fact, we intentionally chosen and designed to launch the processes today where you contacted us to come and make this presentation. So the process, the bid process, that is 2024 licensing round, has started, yes. And we have, happy to announce here before this eminent audience of enlightened audience of civil society that we have a calendar in place, a calendar that the processes have been calendarized that you could see from end to end, the beginning and the end. So this calendar, we're going to make it available in the public space. So by that calendar, we expect that the end process will be by January next year. We would have concluded the whole processes. And the reason is that it's a process, I mean, the processes require the commission to be very diligent in the way we conduct the different segments of the bid, the licensing round. So the calendar will be available so that you members of the civil society can follow through our processes and see exactly what we are doing in that respect. Now your second question. The net zero, yeah, thank you very much. Yes, on the net zero, let me share with us that the commission in moving in tandem with the world order, and that is global footprint on energy transition. We've created an energy transition unit as we speak to show how resilient and dynamic we are as a regulator. So we have, as part of our structure, energy transition and carbon monetization unit. And interestingly, the head of that unit is here in this hall listening to me. So that unit works, functions in collaboration with other agencies, Nigeria and outside the country. That is to implement energy transition. That is to move us, that is our regulatory processes to ensure that it is in alignment with the global world order on energy transition. So we are doing that. But I need to emphasize that our belief and approach to energy transition is that, that energy transition should be just, given our abundant resources like the ES. You have noted that we have a huge carbon reserves, and we are now talking about energy sustainability. So we are talking in terms of energy sustainability, that is production in a clean manner, as against thinking in terms of jettisoning what we have. And also utilizing all our abundant energy resources. Given the fact that as a nation we have energy resources in the right mix, both the renewable, we are endowed as a nation to have all this in the right mix. So we are more concerned about energy sustainability, yes. And we have put that department in place that is the energy transition and carbon monetization, and they are working to actually come up with regulatory framework that actually puts us at par with best practices in terms of energy transition framework and regulation. Yes. Yes, on our revenue, like we projected, that is, yes, consistently, yes, we've been, we're happy to announce, like I said, we've been meeting our target, and that speaks to our effective revenue reporting, remittances reporting. So we'll be meeting our targets, and this year we expect, by the grace of God, even as tight and challenging the industry is, we are working assiduously to meet our target. Yes, thank you.
All right. On that note, we would that's right. The applause speaks for itself. Thank you very much. But of course, we have to close. And so my pleasure and privilege at this time to invite the chair of the Neiti Companies Forum and Executive Director, Oil Producers Trade Section, Mr. Egweke Ajafia, to please give the vote of thanks.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to give the vote of thanks. I just want to start before that to say that the Commission has been very active in the implementation of the PIA. And like the CCE said, they have been working with the industry. So even when certain regulations are difficult, he's always intervening to get everybody together and to find ways to make sure that we work things out. And this is something we are going to continue to do, because the PIA is not the end, it's the beginning. And then the implementation, as we implement it, we see issues that we address. But I want to say thank you to CCE for his help. Each time there are issues, he's always ready to listen and to help resolve the problem. So yes, thank you very much for this maiden event and for actually launching this dialogue, bringing industry leaders, regulators, and the people who move the environment to the hot seat to be able to speak to the audience. There's nothing as good as transparency. When things are done transparently, the questions are less and suspicions are also less. So thank you very much for this initiative. CC, you have been wonderful in the way you answered all the questions. I'm not actually surprised, because he has been in the industry for many years. He has done almost everything you have to do in the industry. So he does not even need to prepare. So we want to thank you very much. Thank you for your leadership. And also thank you for coming, because CC is somebody that is very busy. Sometimes when I go to his office, I will stay there for 5 hours waiting for him, because everybody wants to see him and he has to also answer to the presidency at times. So thank you very much for your time and for coming. And for the rest of us here today, the civil society and other stakeholders, wonderful questions. Those questions were very intelligent, and it shows really that you are people who understand what is happening, and you also want to get the best, not only for the industry, but also for the various. So thank you very much for coming. I wish everyone a safe passage back to their respective businesses, and also safe journey. Thank you so much.
So on that note, just before we rise, let's give the loudest round of applause to the special guest at the maiden Neiti House Dialogue. There will be a group photograph. There will be a group photograph at the forecourt for all the participants, of course, with the special guest. I've heard repeatedly, this is the problem with mnemonics or acronyms. CCE. In my head, I'll be saying CCEC. That is, hang on. You just say CCE, right? Commission Chief Executive. But we're also familiar with the construction giant from China, CCEC. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, it's been our pleasure being with you and having you at the maiden edition of the Neiti House Dialogue. We have to close now, and let's rise for the national anthem. Let's rise for the national anthem, please. In the absence of a playback, we take it ourselves. Arise, O compatriots. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.